In the last video, we saw how Alex could use a VLOOKUP function to pull through loads of data from a different sheet. This is a very powerful and versatile lookup function, as it will allow us to do reconciliations, error checking, as well as auto-populating. You probably also spotted, however, that there were a few limitations with the VLOOKUP. For example, if we had 25 columns, to go and type in 25 separate VLOOKUPs is not great use of our time. We can't, however, simply copy the VLOOKUP across because of this, the column number. That has got to be specified for each VLOOKUP. Another concern, and this is Alex's concern, is what if the columns on the international price list should change? The client has assured him that the item code will remain fixed, but what they cannot guarantee is that users won't insert other columns or even reorganize the existing columns. And if that happens, our VLOOKUPs are all going to break. So Alex would like to make this solution a little bit more robust and a little bit more flexible. And to do that, he's going to use a match function. Match is a little bit like a miniature VLOOKUP. Given a particular value, it will go and look it up in either a row or a column. It's not worried about horizontal or vertical. When it finds the match, instead of returning a corresponding value, however, it will return the position within that column or row. So for example, if I were to look up the word short description, in the heading row here in my price list, it will find it at position 3. And that is exactly what my VLOOKUP needs. So let's go through the process. I'm going to click back into customer quote, and just here in row 4, above the short description, I'm going to type equals M and then press tab to select match. Similar to the VLOOKUP, the first thing it wants is a lookup value, and that is my short description. So I'm just going to click on the cell below. Then I'm going to type a comma. Now I'm going to be looking that up in that heading row. So I'm going to come to my international price list, and I'm going to select the whole heading row starting from the first item. Although the first item will probably never be the lookup value I want, I need this to be 1 so that this can be 2 and this can be 3. Okay, now type a comma, and then we have 3 options with the VLOOKUP. If you're working with sequenced data, you can look for less than or greater than, but in this case we're looking for an exact match. So double click exact match or type 0, and then click enter. As we were expecting, we've got the value 3. And if I click on that cell and drag it across, there's my category column and there's my retail price column. So now I've got Excel to identify the column number for me rather than typing it in. This is more powerful and more flexible. What we're going to do is remove the calculation in our category column, and if you have one in your retail price, let's remove that as well. So I'm going to come to the top of the table, click my drop down to select my data, and then just press delete. What I want to do now is change this calculation so I can drag it across and down. So I'm going to double click back into E6, and instead of using the 3 that I typed in, I'm going to use the result from my match. Now I could actually paste the match directly into this calculation, which would look very neat, but the problem with doing that is it's going to mean I have to redo that match calculation for every item in my table, which is much more inefficient. So actually, although it looks a little bit clumsy, it's much more efficient to have a single match that does all the work for us. So I'm going to leave this match here, and I'm simply going to click on the result. But then because I want this to stay still when I copy down, I'm going to press F4, and then I'm going to press F4 again. This is our mixed reference, and what this is saying is lock the row but don't lock the column. So when I drag the formula across, it will pick up 5 and 4. Okay, that's a good start. Let's click enter. And if we just double check, All of these are now correct, except they're actually using this value rather than the 3 we typed before. All right, great. Now what I want to do is drag this formula across. So I'm going to come to my fill handle, drag it across, and oh dear, that did not work. Let's have a look at why. The reason is this. Instead of looking at my item code, it's now looking at my location code. So with structured references, when you drag them across, it actually treats it as a relative reference. Fortunately, there's a very easy way we can get around this problem. I'm going to press escape and I'm just going to undo that last change. And instead of dragging, I'm going to do an old-fashioned copy. So making sure I've clicked on E6, I'm going to copy it, Control C. And then I'm going to select both of these columns. And if I paste, I'm going to actually use my formatting. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose the option Paste Formulas. Worked an absolute treat. So with structured references, if you drag, it's relative, but if you copy, it's absolute. Little unusual, but now you know the secret. Now one last little tidy up thing, this 354 doesn't look very nice here, so I could go and hide the row, but actually there's an even simpler solution. If you simply select the data and make the text white on white, you can't see it. And when we send this to the customer, we'll probably save it as a PDF, so they'll never even know that row was there. So what we've looked at in this video is how we can use our match function to make our VLOOKUP even more powerful and even more versatile. This was a quick introduction to match, but you're going to see a lot more of match. While we don't typically use it on its own, we often use it in combination with other lookup functions. And in the next video, we're going to look at one of the classic combinations, which is our index match. So make sure you're comfortable working with the match before moving on.